When I first started The Wayward Home back in 2017, I had no idea how to run a business, especially as a digital nomad. But I started treating my travel blog as a business right away, opening business bank accounts and tracking my expenses with QuickBooks. But going from a full time job where someone else manages your taxes to doing everything on your own can be really overwhelming, and it was for me too. Our RVer Heather Ryan, aka the Tax Queen, runs her own business on the road too, and her entire goal is to help other digital nomads learn how to run and maintain a business on the road. Let's go.
Welcome to the Wayward Home Podcast, all about van life, boat life, and nomadic living. We'll bring you tips, interviews, and stories from the road and on the water. Now, here's your host, Kristen Haynes.
Hey there, I'm Kristen Haynes with thewaywardhome.com, and I spend half the year in my Sprinter van and half on my sailboat in Mexico. And I hope to inspire you to live your nomadic living dreams as well. So I run my own business on the road called The Wayward Home, a travel blog. And at first, it was really hard for me to figure out exactly how to do this. Tracking expenses is tedious. I had no idea how to do taxes, and I just felt lost. So that's where today's guest, Heather Ryan, comes in. Heather is a former full-time RVer, now part-time RVer and world traveler, and she's known as the Tax Queen, and she has so many tips about starting your own business and finances and everything, and I'm super excited you are here. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. So let's just go back to the very beginning. You started full-time RVing in 2016, so let's talk about why you started doing that and what that looked like for you.
Sure. It feels like forever ago now. But my husband and I both worked from home. So we were sharing an office, so an extra bedroom in our house. And I kind of said, why are we doing this? Like, if we're already in this tiny space, spending pretty much all day in it together, why can't we do this and travel and see things? I had lost a parent at a young age who never saw retirement. We had just lost his aunt to ALS, and it was kind of like, well, what if we don't make it to those? What if that happens to us? Let's just jump in and live life now. And so there we were, selling the house and diving full time, dove right into the deep end, and there was definitely a learning curve, as we all know.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And so what were you doing for work before you started RVing, and how did you make the transition to being on the road? I know that can be challenging.
Sure. So I was doing bookkeeping for a local company in person. So I would go to their office, but I was also doing tax work on the side. So that was mostly work from home. I did rent an office during the height of season so clients could come in. And when we hit the road, I had to make the hard decision to no longer have in person appointments and lose those clients. Some people did transfer to become virtual clients with me, and some people decided to leave. And as we hit the road, we met up with Heath and Alyssa, if you're familiar with them, and went to the RV Entrepreneur Summit. And I just started to meet other people, right, like-minded business owners and travelers trying to make it work. And I just realized that those were the people I could serve. Like, I could answer all their questions. So I pivoted my business, and that's history. Here we are.
And yeah, that's fantastic. And when I was chatting with you earlier, you said you lost some of your business at first before you were able to regain it. What was that like going through that process?
Um, Really hard. It's really, really difficult to say goodbye to clients, even though they've been good clients, and make that decision for your business. But I think it's super, super important to stay true to your philosophies in life, values, and really design your life and your business around your lifestyle. So if they weren't, like, in the end, right? I look back and I say, well, that was actually the best decision I did because I jumped in to a different niche clients. But it was not an easy, yeah, it's really not easy. There's no other way to say it. You have to
Yeah.
trust in yourself, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And you also have to go through some of those maybe downturns or loss of income before you're able to pick it back up. And I think
Mhm.
that's also difficult for people. I know in my profession, blogging, like I just had a huge downturn due to a Google update. And these are things we just have to deal with as business owners. But what was that like for you going from that stability to suddenly you're like, how am I going to make ends meet? Like, what was that?
Sure.
Though that's kind of hard to go
Well,
through.
It's scary. I mean, there's no way around it. It's scary. There's definitely ways to cut costs when you're RVing. You can, be more of a boondocker. You can eat in all the time and not eat out. You can find plenty of free things of hiking and things to explore. So there's a way to save money and be able to still live the lifestyle. And I think that's actually why some people choose this lifestyle is can be less expensive, less pressure to earn money. I also had, thankfully, I had a husband who was earning a living doing consulting work, so I did have that to fall back on. But it's hard. I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's. I don't know how else to say it, but like, just it's a difficult thing, and you have to just agree to say, hey, here's my budget, and I'm gonna make this happen. So.
Yeah, totally. And one thing that was good for me was that I was living smaller. I had been laid off as a news reporter in San Francisco, and suddenly I was living in my boyfriend Tom's sailboat, which is kind of beat up and had really cheap, rent or
Mhm.
docking fees. And that's what gave me the opportunity to be able to start a business was having such low expenses. So I think that's one good
Sure.
thing about our, how you were RVing or I was living in the van or the boat, that gives opportunity to kind of cut back on our expenses and pursue something.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess there's always the fallback. I knew I could do like camp hosting or some other kind of work camping, work for Amazon seasonally. Like I knew that those opportunities were there if the situation became to that point where I really just needed cash to help pay bills and put food on our table. So that also, I think, in the back of your head says, okay, well, I could still go get a job if I need to.
That's so true. That's such a good thing for people to remember who are interested in starting their own business because you aren't going to be profitable at first. And I did freelance writing on the side and I sold articles as I was building my website. I didn't fully like go all in on it. I was doing side work. So it's good you mentioned that sometimes you might have to do that or have backup
Mhm.
plans. But there's a lot of things that can be there for people as they're
It's-
starting their business.
Yeah, there's so many ways. It's actually one of the things I love about my current clients is that I learn all these different ways that people are making it work. And some people, yes, they have, over $100,000 of income. Some people have 20,000 and they're all making it work for them and it's fine. And they're all happy.
Yeah,
So,
that's so interesting. And I feel like having one's own business while traveling full time is even better than working for someone because you can build in your own flexibility and work
mhm.
when you want. And I think it's easier than having to show up for a daily meetings or doing whatever for a
Sure.
boss.
Sure.
So,
It feels pretty good when you know that you can make a living, you don't have to rely on someone else. So,
yeah, so
like you
true.
said, you got laid off, right? There is no getting laid off when it's your company.
That's so true. If you have an income drop, you just work harder and you get creative and inventive. And I feel like just the sky's the limit with how many ways you can pivot and turn your business. And that's what you did too. And I
Mhm.
just think that's what's truly the fun thing about what we do is owning our own business that allows us to travel. It's really quite incredible.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. So you did the full time RVing and then you transitioned
Mhm.
eventually to part time. So what does your life look like now?
So we bought a home base. So we have 6.5 acres on the western slope of Colorado, and we really like having it to come back to. We have RVers come and stay here. It just kind of feels peaceful and quiet, and we know where the grocery store is and everything else without using Google Maps. And we split our time, so we are currently in the process of building out a van, really downsizing from a fifth wheel and being a little more nimble. And we just came back from 3 months in Europe. So we started our international travels and we felt like having a home base allowed that to happen a little easier. We had a place to store our things when we were not, relying on the parking lot or someone's driveway or something.
Yeah, that's so true. So that's really fun. And you just continue to be able to do your business anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I think also the fun thing about traveling, this is kind of a side note, is that we've met so many people through RVing who have now switched to having home bases or have switched to international travel. And so we actually got to meet up with RV friends while in Europe. So it's like, I don't know, it's very satisfying.
Well, for sure. No matter what kind of travel you do, it's kind of in your bones, whether it's RVing or van life
Mhm.
or boating or just staying in an Airbnb in a foreign country. It's all just travel and it's exciting. And there's just so many ways that you
Yeah.
can do it while having your own business.
Yes.
Yeah, it's super cool. So you work with a lot of different people now, a lot of nomads, a lot of RVers, and
Mhm.
you do mostly like taxes and bookkeeping for them. Is that how your current kind of work is now?
Sure. So I do tax prep, so tax preparation and tax planning are really my focus. I do have some bookkeeping clients, but I'm currently closed. I'm full there. But really, I also just want education. And I want to make sure that those who are new to owning a business really understand their finances, understand what you can deduct. We call, like a lot of people call the write-offs, things like that. Can they take their travel? And that's really my goal, is to support and educate as well. So I have a course and an education side of my business, and then I'm working with clients for consulting and tax prep.
Very cool. And so are you finding out that in this community, the RVing or the nomad community, that a lot more people are starting businesses in order to fund their lifestyle?
Absolutely. It's a also a freedom of time, right? So you can choose to travel days. You can take a day off if you need to. You can sit. Maybe the person who's not driving, the passenger, can be on their computer and working. So that flexibility and that travel lifestyle really lends itself to being a business owner and not a W-2 wage earner where you're stuck in it, even if it's your home office on a like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday type of scenario. So I do find that.
Yeah, and what types of businesses are people tending to start? Do you see any trends, or does it run the gamut, or what are some examples of businesses that you're
Sure.
seeing?
So it's all over the place. There's blogs similar to you, or other influencers, things like that. Families. I've seen, tech people, so maybe computer programming, things like that. Designers, writers. I'm trying to think. I mean, you name it. It's like it's all over. Bookkeepers. I actually work with some bookkeepers, and helping them with understand their tax deductions and things. So
And do you find that some of these people did not have businesses before and they're brand new self-employed business owners?
many of them have not had businesses. They're new to it. They get surprised by things if they don't research, and learn ahead of time. And that's just all part of the learning curve as well of owning a business. So.
Yeah, so true. And also, I'm curious, are you seeing people of a variety of ages starting businesses, or are you seeing kind of more one age group? Are you seeing retirees start businesses to bring in a little extra money? What are you seeing there?
Sure, I definitely see some retirees starting side hustles, and that is helping them to make ends meet because we all know Social Security is oh so great. Or they're work camping. So sometimes even work camping, you receive a W-9, 1099, so they can take expenses and things that way. So it's all the way. I think my average age of clients is really in 40s or 40s, 50s. But I do have clients all the way down to in their 30s. So
Interesting. Yeah, that's so cool. And what do you think are some of the main issues or, confusion that people have when they're first starting a business? Like, what do you see people doing wrong right off the bat?
so there's several things, for just not understanding expenses, how to track them, tracking them from the get-go and not getting behind on it and then being overwhelmed. And then once you're making money, which we hope is happening sooner rather than later, paying self-employment taxes is a huge surprise to many people. In addition to that, those income tax. So
Yeah, that's very true. That was a hard pill to swallow when I started. I hired someone off the get-go actually because I have no idea how to do my own
sure.
taxes. And
Mhm.
yeah, do you see that people are hiring people, or are some people trying to do their taxes on their own and they're getting really like confused about it?
It's some of each. I give props to anybody who wants to do it themselves. I encourage you if you feel comfortable. I do not have a problem with that. But there are plenty of people that feel overwhelmed or just feel that safety and security of having someone back them up, and do the return for them. So
Totally. And a lot of people, I think, as travelers, or if they start a travel blog or a YouTube channel, or as you mentioned, an influencer, maybe Instagram, Like, what kinds of surprising write-offs have you seen in that space? And it seems like it's hard to determine what's a write-off. Is that kind of some points of confusion out there?
Mhm. Sure. So there's definitely points of confusion when someone is given something. So let's say you're in an RV and you get like a new set of disc brakes or something from a company. I'm not even going to name any companies because I'm not an influencer. And but that actually counts as income. So you're receiving something as income, and that's so surprising to them. Now they have to include whatever $10,000 for those brakes that they just received on their fifth wheel or whatever, and that's hard. So yeah,
Yeah, I
or it
felt like
can be.
that was surprising for me too, because I did receive a lot of free products, and when I was talking to my tax guy, he's like, "Yeah, that's all income," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's a lot of
Mhm.
income,"
Yep,
but, it is what it is, and that's how being a small
sure.
business owner. So,
Mhm.
I'm curious if you've encountered people, like, if they're writing itineraries or if they're going somewhere and shooting a YouTube video on a specific campground, like, are those things that people can write off if they're in the content creation world?
So content creation is a sticky one. I'm not gonna lie. When you're full-time traveling, content creation is hard. It's a very gray area. It hasn't really been tested in the tax courts. So for my personal philosophy, I am on the air of caution, and I don't like to raise red flags. So usually, I say if you're parked at a campground, and let's say you have to drive 100 miles because you're going to tour Yellowstone and you're filming it for your YouTube channel, sure, take the mileage. You have concrete evidence, right? With your video and your Instagram posts and all of that. So I don't have a problem with that. But getting from Denver, let's say, to Yellowstone does not count for mileage, if that makes sense. The
Yeah.
difference there.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And in terms of doing that, do you recommend people keep like spreadsheets with their expense and then what they use it for? Does that just get a little bit too granular? Like, I know that's a lot of book record keeping.
Sure. So, yeah, travel log is really helpful. So, a spreadsheet in that respect. And then for mileage, for sure, you have to have written evidence, whether it's on paper, if you're a paper person and you want to just keep it in the front with you in your driver's seat, that's fine. Nowadays, we all carry phones, smartphones. So, using an app is also a really great idea. There's one I can recommend, Mile IQ, and it can record every drive you take, and you can literally swipe right for business and swipe left for personal, or it could be the opposite. I can't remember. But it makes it really simple, I think, and you don't have to think about it, remember to track it because it's doing it behind the scenes.
So, yeah, with this gray area, travel and content creation and everything, was that somewhat of a learning curve for you as a tax preparer to look into that and figure out how to advise, yeah, your clients moving forward?
Sure. I did do a lot of research. I looked up court cases because I really wanted to know what has been tested and what hasn't. So I've done a lot of research there, and I still continue to do that because I get new states all the time, and I'm always having to learn new state rules, regulations, and credits available, things like that.
Yeah, that is a challenge of being someone who works with nomads is you don't just focus on one state. It can be like tons of
Mhm.
different states and you're learning so many things.
Yes. Yes, I filed, I think it's like 33 states so far. So, yeah.
Wow, does that get overwhelming for you, trying to learn all this, or is that something that you really like doing?
I really enjoy it because I like to learn, and so it keeps me on my toes, and I like it.
Yeah, so what advice do you have? Do you have any advice for someone who is looking to jump into RVing or being a nomad and they work at a 9 to 5 and they want to transition to owning a business? Is there anything you would tell them about like how to figure out like what do I do for a business? I know that can be hard.
Sure. I mean, to me, it's follow a passion. Is there something you've been passionate about wanting to explore? Maybe photography is something you've always loved and you want to start selling your photos. Lean into it. And if if you're planning the life, many people take a year or 2 years to plan for the hitting the road. Start taking pictures. Start the business. Like start doing it on the weekends at night. Um, Go to art shows or something if that's your deal. I'm just picking one particular, but yeah, lean into your passions and just get going with it. And eventually, you also save up money if you know that this is the path you're trying to take. So if you can and you have extra income as you're working your W-2, maybe start to cut expenses down and save up some funds so you have a little bit of a nest egg to lean on as you're growing that business.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I know when I started blogging or online business, I knew nothing about it. Like, so one thing I did do is
Mhm.
I took a ton of courses and I'm still taking courses to learn because it's like getting another degree. So I feel like with all these
Sure.
things, all these business opportunities, there are ways to learn and to really
Mhm.
focus and hone in on that business. Are you seeing people like do that as well as studying and learning?
Sure.
Mhm.
There's some of that. I mean, again, I have some people that will go to the RV inspection, like certification school, and become RV, inspectors, and that's how they open a business that way and make ends meet. So there's definitely that education component. But a lot of people, if you think about it, you have skills, right? Other than your job, you have likes and passions and skills and things that if you've been alive 40 years, you've been probably doing for 30 of those years or 20 of those years, and just expanding on that. So,
Yeah, right. And what if somebody wants to do what you do and maybe start out by becoming a bookkeeper or maybe eventually doing what you do and becoming a tax preparer? Like
mhm.
what can they do to enter your particular field?
Sure. So there's bookkeeping school. If you really want to learn that, there's online courses to learn bookkeeping. I guarantee there's probably YouTube, right? That teaches you many things. Just be careful there that it's actual accurate information, and you're learning from someone who's a trusted source. But yeah, there's definitely ways to do that and go. You can get also certified in using QuickBooks, which will help you just understand the program and the back end. So yeah.
Right. And then once someone does that, they have to find clients. For you, how did you find those initial clients and how'd you build up your client roster?
Um, how did I find my initial clients? It really was organic, I have to say. Um, just getting out there, talking about your business, meeting other travelers. I started a blog. Okay, I know it sounds like silly maybe to some people. Like, I'm not talking about traveling. I'm talking about taxes. And it really took off because I found nobody else was talking about traveling, RVing, and taxes, and owning a business. And that really helped just drive organic traffic. For me personally, I've teamed up a lot with Escapees. If you're not familiar with that, there's an RV club, and I speak at their events. Um, and yeah, it's also just word of mouth. Once you start getting your first 5 or 10 clients, depending on how many you need, and you serve them well, they're going to start telling their friends or their family, hey, I work with Heather and she's been awesome. You should too.
Right. You
So,
did stumble into or enter into a real niche in terms of tax purposes, because you're right. Nobody's talking about it. I feel like people like to kind of ignore taxes and bookkeeping because a lot of people find it not exciting, but they have to do it, you know? So,
yes. Yes.
so it's, yeah, as a business owner. So I'm curious, I get asked this question sometimes as someone starting their own business. And what I did is I operated as a sole proprietor for many years, but when I reached a certain income level, I became an S Corp LLC. What do you recommend for people that are just getting started? When do they need that? Do they need to even think about that in the beginning? What's your advice
Sure.
there?
Really, I don't like to send people down that rabbit hole. If you want to start a business, then just start the business. If you want to market under a certain name, like a catchy name or something, you may need to file a DBA or doing business as with whatever state or county that you're based out of, to use that name. Otherwise, starting a business, you can use your legal name in the business and it's sole proprietor. You don't have to do anything special. And that's to me the easiest way to get started. The biggest thing I do stress, no matter what you do, if you have an LLC or just a regular no registrations, is have separate bank accounts. So make sure that even if it's a personal account, it's you only run business expenses and income through there and nothing personal, and they're separate. So
Right. That's a good thing people do
uh,
immediately. I know that's one thing I did right away is open a business checking account at Chase. It's
mhm.
business stuff, business credit card. It's all
Sure.
separate. So I'm glad I
Yep.
did that at first. And then probably people need to get on like QuickBooks and just start immediately tracking their expenses, right?
So yeah, you can use QuickBooks. A lot of people feel it's a challenge. It's just another thing to learn and keep up with, and they're not a numbers person. They don't want to deal with it. So using a spreadsheet, especially when you're small and starting out, I don't see a problem as long as you're keeping up with it. So,
Yeah, yeah, very true. Good advice. Yeah, QuickBooks can be a little bit overwhelming, lots of numbers. I still do my own bookkeeping and it just makes me pull my hair out
yeah.
sometimes. Especially as you get bigger and
Yeah,
have more and more
I did a lot
expenses.
of it's also an expense, and so if you're not making money to have to justify spending more money is hard. So that's why I think there's nothing wrong with a spreadsheet, as long as you use it. And I will give a tidbit if you want to use the program. Wave Accounting is free, so that one is almost as good as QuickBooks. I'd say it's pretty comparable. So you can use that from the start for free.
Yes,
So,
very true. Keeping expenses low when you're just starting to make money or not making money yet is really important.
mhm. Yeah,
So, and does somebody
and
have,
then
oh, sorry.
I wanted to just address like needing an LLC. An LLC is a state like legal entity. It's actually not a tax entity, which is a lot of confusion. Um, so a single member LLC is just a sole proprietor for tax purposes. And like you said, you mentioned that you have an S corp. So if you're thinking your business is going to grow and you want to move towards that, then start the LLC from the start, and then you can make that S corp tax election when you're ready. But the entity has to be there in order for you to make the election.
Gotcha.
I
And is
hope
that
that
something,
is clear.
yeah. And is that something that you help people go through that process as well?
I do, yeah. So I work with my clients, and they ask me about this all the time. LLC is the most misunderstood term, I think. Um, yeah,
Yeah, totally. That's why it's good to ask a professional.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I want to talk a little bit about your course because not only do you do taxes, but you help educate people on all of these aspects of owning a
Mhm.
business, which that just doesn't really exist in this space so much. So what made you decide to create this course and when did you launch it?
Sure. So the idea basically came to me because everyone is asking me the same questions, and I'm saying, well, if this person and that person and everyone's asking me this question, then how about I just have this place that people can come and buy this information and learn from me, and I don't have to answer every single one separately. I can do it on a bigger scale. So I actually launched, I can't I think it was 2020. um, and then we all know what happened in 2020. And the tax law changed like crazy during COVID and the pandemic, and I had to kind of push the course aside because I was struggling to keep up with life and tax law changes and everything else. And I just relaunched in this past fall, and that was really exciting. And I took a lot of my student feedback from 2 or 3 years ago and made it, I think, bigger and better. So, yeah.
Very cool. Congrats. And what are some of the things people can expect to learn in your course?
So I go over everything like entity choice. So we were just talking about LLC and S corp election. What are all those things mean? Just giving clarity around that, and I also give you places to get registered, the best states to pick. Then we get into using a bank account and bank recommendations of banks to work with as a nomad. Bookkeeping. So how to use QuickBooks. I do kind of quick walkthroughs of QuickBooks and Wave. Those are the two I really recommend. I go over expenses in detail, and what write-offs you can take. So yeah, self-employment taxes, you name it. It covers all of it.
Very cool. And yeah, and
Yeah.
people are going through your course now. And is it helping them prepare their own taxes, or do they still mostly hire you to do taxes, but they're learning all this background information as well?
I do not walk through how to prepare your tax return. Many of them will choose to do it on their own. That's fine. Some will hire me. I don't have the course out there as a, hey, you have to hire me for tax prep. That is not the reason why I have it. It's really to teach you how to track, what to track, what's deductible, things like that, and to
Yeah.
stay on track. So I give calculators so you know kind of how to calculate your self-employment taxes, things like that.
Oh, that's really helpful. And like that also helps people with their budget because quarterly taxes is another thing we didn't talk about that surprised me when I started a business. Like, oh, I have to file quarterly taxes? How do I do that?
Sure.
So
Sure.
that can be
Well, that
overwhelming.
that coincides with the whole self-employment tax item. It kind of is a bundle to me. So when you're self-employed, paying self-employment taxes, you do have to pay quarterly tax to keep up with that
Yeah,
responsibility. Yeah.
right. Yeah, so many things to learn when you're moving in from the world of having, full-time employee to being your own boss. There's like this is just so many
Mhm.
aspects. So it's really cool that you've found this niche and you're out there teaching and helping people. I think that's really fantastic.
Yeah, it's been fun, and I did launch it this time. It comes with coaching, so you get monthly coaching with me to come and bring your questions. And I also like it because the fellow entrepreneurs can kind of teach you as well. So they're asking a question. Maybe they're a little ahead of you, and they're asking this question, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I should be thinking about that as well,"
Yeah,
or "I
so
didn't think about that."
it comes with the community aspect where people can interact with each other.
Yeah,
Cool, fantastic. So it sounds like the course is closed for 2023, but when are you expecting people to be able to join it again?
I'm hoping to launch again next, like spring or summer, so May or June. Yeah.
Awesome. So great. In the show notes below, we'll definitely have a link to your waitlist so that people can jump on there and be notified when you open your course. And then we'll have links, of course, to your website if people need help with taxes. And you help. You said you do tax preparation, and do you also do consultations? Like if someone wants to call you and have a meeting, do you do that as well?
I do. I've done a lot of just one-on-one consultation to answer a few questions. Sometimes even I will teach you bookkeeping, so we could do a one-on-one call. We open up QuickBooks and just kind of answer your questions there. So I do that as well.
Fantastic. Well, Heather, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Is there anything else we missed that you wanted to share?
I think we covered a lot, so I feel pretty good there. It's
Totally.
been fun.
Yeah, it's been super fun, and I hope, more people are inspired to start their own business and live life on the road, and it sounds like, both you and I are living these amazing lifestyles that we want to live. We're not trapped in an office, and I just think it's so inspiring to hear all the ways nomads are making money because it is possible.
Totally. I totally agree. I love the freedom to choose. How's that?
Yes, freedom to choose. Cool. Well, thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks.